In the middle of the ocean, Alex swims to his wounded comrade Jake, who survived the crash of Flight 462. She delivers Jake to the fetus with the other survivors. Tom, one of the survivors, hits the infected passenger with an oar and pushes him overboard. A few days pass, and Tom tells Alex that Jake is dying and urges her to kill him before he turns. That night, he stabs Tom when he tries to kill Jake in his sleep. Michael, the survivor, urges Alex to put Jake out of his misery. On the ship, Abigail with Trend is trying to reach her interlocutor by satellite phone to confirm his arrival. The phone is disconnected. Madison and Travis start making love in the room. The boat creaks to a stop. Travis determines that the engine has failed due to a clogged water intake. He says that to solve the problem he will have to look into the submarine. Madison persuades him to wait until dawn, but Trend and Travis agree that there is no time to waste. Travis scuba dives into the water and swims to the water intake. He sees the infected Michael floundering next to the hull, his hand stuck in the intake valve. Michael attacks Travis, who is panicking and trying to escape. Later in the engine room, Travis starts removing the accumulated sludge from the filtration system and informs Trend that repairs may take all day. With Trend responding that they can't wait that long. Daniel notices that Ophelia's wound is infected. She informs him that she has run out of antibiotics. He forbids her to ask Madison for antibiotics, insisting that families should take care of themselves. Blood is blood. Alicia shows Madison a place on the shore, littered with luggage from the crashed plane. Alicia, Nick and Chris insist on going ashore to get supplies. Madison and Travis refuse to let them go, but Daniel offers them to go with him. Alicia, Nick and Chris board the Zodiac. Daniel informs Madison that Trend is planning to sail to Baja, California, and asks her to ask Trend about his intentions. On shore, Daniel tells everyone to stay in sight while they gather supplies. Travis goes scuba diving to work on the water intake. Chris separates from the group and goes deep into the island. Madison hears a noise and sees blood coming out of the place in the water where Travis was swimming. Michael's body floats to the surface after Travis stabs him in the eye socket. Nick finds a knife in his suitcase and puts it in his pocket. Elsewhere, Chris discovers part of the wrecked plane's hull and enters the cockpit. He teases the infected and hits him with a metal crowbar. A man, still alive, wakes up in the next row and weakly begs for help. Madison tells Trend about his secret plans and demands to tell him what is in Bach. Trend says he has a shelter with food, water and concrete walls in Rosarito, Baja California, but explains that he has very little time to get there. She demands that he take the whole group with him. They carefully conclude a contract of trust in each other. Daniel rummages through the luggage in search of antibiotics for Ophelia. Nick informs Daniel that Ophelia needs amoxicillin, oxycodone or something similar. Daniel realizes that Chris is missing and goes in search of him. Chris helps the surviving passenger of the plane to get up from his seat. When a man can't move, Chris notices that part of his spine is exposed. The critically injured passenger continues to beg for help, but refuses water. Chris understands that the man wants to die, and knowing that the wound fatally hits the infected person on the head, Daniel looks for Chris on the beach, and then goes deep into the island. Alicia leaves Nick to find Daniel and Chris. Nick finds a large cache of amoxicillin. Madison informs Travis about the plans from the Trend in Bach and says that the house is their best chance of survival. Travis refuses to trust the Trend, but Madison claims they have no choice. Daniel runs into Alex on the beach, who is fleeing from behind a sand dune. "They're coming," she says. A large herd of infected people appears in the distance. Nick notices an infected person trapped in a nearby pit. He watches curiously as crabs crawl over him. He manages to catch and eat one of them. Getting too close to the edge, Nick accidentally slips into the pit and is attacked. He stabs the infected using a knife found earlier. Another infected person falls into the pit. Alicia finds Chris at the body of the plane. He is visibly shaken by what he has experienced and does not dare to tell the details. They hear a shot in the distance. Madison sees the herd through binoculars and tells Trend they need to leave. Daniel shoots the herd, and Alex, Alicia and Chris join him. Back on Abigail, Travis removes the last sediment and severed arm from the filtration system and repairs the engine. Trend launches the boat. The herd is approaching Daniel, Alex, Alicia and Chris. They fight back, but there are significantly more of them. When they are almost defeated, Nick appears, covered in blood and helps fight off the infected, giving the group enough time to escape. As they run, Nick realizes that the infected are not attacking him. He goes to the herd and comes face to face with one of them. The infected person can smell him, but does not react, as Nick growls at him in response. Nick is brought out of his trance by Alicia's voice, and he retreats. The group gets to the Zodiac and descends into the water. Alex tells Daniel that they need to make one stop. Trend looks through binoculars and sees the approaching Zodiac with a yellow board in tow. Back on Abigail, Madison informs the group that Trend has invited them to join him at a complex in Bach where there is food, electricity and water. Trend refuses to let Alex and Jake board the ship. Travis insists that they at least tow Alex's fetus to San Diego. Alicia and Madison bring Alex and Jake water and a blanket. Nick gives Ophelia a rosary he found on the beach. Inside the boat, the Trend goes back and forth. On the raft, Alex hugs Jake and assures him that now everything is as bad as it will never be, and that every day he will get better and better. The Trend rushes out and cuts off the fruit. Madison objects, but it's too late. The fetus drifts behind, and Abigail sails south. Trend silently returns to the wheelhouse. Nick swims ashore in the middle of the night, avoiding detection by a helicopter and a patrol boat. He gets to a recently abandoned refugee camp on the shore. Attracting the attention of the infected, he lures him into one of the tents and kills him, smeared in blood from the infected stomach. Back on Abigail, Travis condemns Trend for cutting off Alex's fetus while Chris and Ophelia are standing on the deck. A fetus with two men and a bleeding pregnant woman approaches Abigail. Chris wonders if he should kill them, but hesitates. The passengers of the raft come on board without an invitation, claiming that the woman has complications with pregnancy. Travis, Daniel and Madison rush upstairs and interrogate strangers. Trend tries to get his MP5, but discovers that the store has been cleaned by Daniel. Madison helps pregnant Vida to go to the bathroom. Alicia goes upstairs and recognizes the voice of one of the men, Jack, on a walkie-talkie. Another man, Reed, hits Travis. Meanwhile, Vida smashes Madison's head in a mirror and then ties her hands. Jack and Reed tie everyone up and hold them at gunpoint. Trend escapes on a raft, and Reed shoots him. In a flashback, Trend meets Thomas Abigail at a bar in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, shortly after Hurricane Katrina. Thomas tells Trend that he came to town to buy real estate. Trend explains that everything he owns is underwater. He helps Thomas get to his hotel room, where Thomas passes out. Trend takes Thomas's credit cards. Back in the present, Trend is floating on his raft and trying to dry his satellite phone by blowing on it. Back on Abigail, Reed threatens to shoot Chris if the group doesn't provide the key to the boat. Travis and Ophelia explain that Trend had the key, but Travis suggests starting the boat by connecting it to the power grid. Vida returns to the group with Madison. Alicia tells Madison that Nick wasn't in his bed. Reed tells Jack to find a walkie-talkie with Alicia so they can contact their leader, Connor. Alicia assures Madison that she will fix the situation, and accuses Jack of luring her. He insists he had no choice, but says Connor is listening to him and will assess the situation when he arrives. And then I'll be safe? She asks. I promise, he says. Nick arrives in a closed village. Disguised by blood, he passes by the infected without attracting attention. In another flashback, Thomas and his companion Luis Flores talk to a Trend about credit card theft. Instead of calling the police, Thomas tells Trend to meet him at a bar to discuss how Trend can fix the situation. Trend says that he always intended to return the money to him with interest. In the present, the C Trend clings to the deflated fruit and accidentally drops the phone. In the control room, Travis connects Abigail. He tells Reed that he has to go to the engine room to turn off the computers. Daniel asks Madison to distract Vida while he loosens his bonds. Madison asks Vida about her pregnancy. In the engine room, Reed advises Travis to start the ship by Connor's arrival, so that he does not get hurt himself. "Prove your worth," he says. Jack communicates by radio with Connor, who informs him that he is on his way. Jack tells Alicia that he owes Connor for saving his life, but insists that he doesn't like what he's doing. He invites Alicia to join their group. Alicia refuses to leave her family. Jack promises to ensure the safety of her family, even if Connor cannot accept them all into his camp. She hugs him. Nick knocks on the front door of the house. Lewis sneaks up on him with a gun. Nick says he was sent by Trend. Lewis loads the luggage into his car and explains to Nick that the apartment complex. This is Abigail's house experience. Nick asks if Luis is the one who will transport them all across the border. "What do you mean by all of us?" Lewis asks. While Daniel is working on his bonds, Madison asks Vida if the baby is moving. She beckons to Vida, asking if the dead baby will turn over in her stomach. Vida threatens to shoot Madison. Reed and Travis return from the engine room. Travis hides the crowbar behind the seat cushion before heading to the control room. Nick and Lewis are going to the beach. Lewis tells Nick that he has secured passage for only 2 people, but Nick thinks that Trend has probably included them in his plans. Lewis explains that he got to know the Trend many years ago through Thomas Abigail. He says his mother, who works for the Abigail family and raised him and Thomas together, lives in a house in Bach. He leads Nick to the Zodiac. In a flashback with Trend and Tom sunbathing in the house of Bach, Tom persuades Trend to postpone a work trip to Los Angeles, but Trend says it's too important for their business. They hold hands. Travis starts the engine just as Connor arrives. Connor climbs aboard Abigail along with 2 other armed pirates and admires the ship. He invites Travis and Alicia to join his company, but says he doesn't need the others. He grants Alicia's request to transfer her family safely to shore. Alicia and Travis are being taken away. Reed and the bodyguards remain to guard the remaining prisoners. Nick and Lewis are sailing to Abigail on the Zodiac. Nick looks through binoculars and notices 2 armed pirates. Lewis shoots the pirates Ben and Brianna with a rifle. Madison hits Reed with a crowbar. On board, Madison tells a certain Lewis what happened to the Trend. Lewis refuses to cross the border without him. In a flashback, Thomas tries to dissuade Trend from going to Los Angeles, given reports of an outbreak. The Trend promises to return in 2 days. They kiss. Madison drives up to the C Trend on the Zodiac and picks it up on board.